see it, and I'd always wanted to do it. And it's kind of like Jim going with me to or when we went to the Bahamas. I probably would not have gone if her sister wasn't willing to go. Her sister went a lot of places with me, and I probably would have thought, well, I want to go, but just to go by yourself, I probably would have said, I guess I won't. But we went out there, and that was really, really,
I think,
neat.
Growing up in Mason, some of the stories are talking about how things have changed.
Now, where is Mason?
Mason.
Where Fredericksburg and Kerrville, that's what they call Central Texas.
Yeah.
So it's 40 miles from Fredericksburg, but 60 from Kerrville, and so that's part of the world. And
Mark,
I know some of the stories Jim's heard 1,000 times. You probably have too. One of the ones he likes the best is just shows how times have changed. But when we were there in Mason, we're in high school still, but nonetheless we would drink and carry on. We could always get our hands on some beer, and the local highway patrolman, the state trooper, was named Ben Walker, who we knew pretty well, and so one of the times where we'd been drinking way too much, and we're leaving town, and I had a deal on my car where there's an old Falcon with a 6-cylinder, so it wouldn't go very fast, but I took the little cap off so it'd make a lot of noise, and as we're leaving, we see Ben over there at the service station getting gas or whatever in his trooper car, so we as we go by, we rack it off, and of course he gets after us, and so I decide I'm going to outrun him, which I could go maybe 70 miles an hour on a good day with a tailwind. And so after we'd gone 5 or 6 miles, we're finally going over what's called Mason Mountain, which is just a hill. And he finally pulls alongside and he's shining his spotlight at me, and I'm, so I finally pull over, and then we get out, and he comes up and so. Let me see your keys, and you boys been drinking? Oh, no, we haven't been drinking. He said, well, let me have the keys so I can, and of course, by then we didn't have anything with us, so he opens the trunk, there's nothing in there, and so forth and so on, and he gives me a ticket for speeding. The only thing he puts on there, it had a little area that says other conditions, which normally would put wet weather, or rainy, or snowy, and he just put drinking there, but he didn't do a DWI or DUI as they call it today. But the part that was funny is, once he's interrogated us a little bit, he said, well, I'll see you boys. And he takes the keys and throws them over the fence out in the pasture and drives away. There we are, so fucked up we can barely stand. No flashlight, no nothing. Our keys are out somewhere. And by the time we found them, we were all fairly sober. It probably took us a couple hours crawling around out there on our hands and knees.
So, that's the way you should solve drinking, underage drinking right there.
Yeah.
That's a lesson there. The other one is the speeding through the town. And
you probably heard that one too. But I'd go up to see my wife, or it wasn't my wife at the time, Carolyn, up in Denton. She went to Texas Women's University, and I was coming back in my same old Falcon, and I'm going through this little town. I can't remember the name of the town, but it was near Waco, but it was actually off. I don't even know I don't think there was an interstate yet, but it was off the main highway, but still a highway going down. And I'm driving along, and I get shit, there's the flashing lights behind me, so I stop, and the cop comes up there and he says, you sure were bogging through my town. He said, I'm Sheriff Smith, you sure were bogging through my town. And I guess I was. And I'd always get out and go back and see the cop, because often I was drinking, and in those days they didn't get excited about that. Now if you get out, they just get back in the car, get back in the car.
Yeah.
But back in those days I'd get out so they wouldn't come look and see that I had an open beer. So I go back
14 empties.
I go back and see him, and he said, I'm going to give you a ticket for speeding. And okay, he gives me the ticket, and he says, I said, well, can I mail this in? He said, no, you got to go see the judge. Okay, he said, follow me. So I follow him, and we go up there, this kind of house-looking thing, and this, true story, he walks in the front door, and I walk in behind him, and he no sooner gets in there, and he says, he had already told me he was Sheriff Smith, let's say, and he said, as he turns around, he said, "I'm Judge Smith. Sheriff Smith tells me you were speeding." I said, "Well, I sure as hell wouldn't call Sheriff Smith a liar. I guess I was." And he said, "Well, the fine will be $25. And I dug in my pocket and I said, "Well, I have $20.25. And he said, "Well, I'll take the 20. You can have the quarter for a cup of coffee."
Oh, wow.
That was the end of the story.
Wow. What year was that?
That would have been probably that probably would have been more like 67, something like that.
Not way back.
Actually, Carolyn got out of TWU in 60. She was 2 years ahead of me. 60. She got out in 66, so it probably would have been 64 or 5, maybe. More like that. One other thing happened in that same old Falcon. There are 1,000 things happened in that same old car, but.
What was it now?
Ford Falcon.
Ford Falcon.
Ford
Little 6-cylinder Ford Falcon. But we had my friend Bob Pelletier, who stayed in the Navy. He ended up dying in his early 50s from smoking too much. But he and I had been up to see Carolyn. We're coming back, and we're there in some town north of Austin, and our clutch linkage fails. It comes apart. It was a standard shift, and so we pull into this service station, and the guy says, "Nah, you got." It was a Sunday night. He said, "You'll have to wait till Monday. There's nobody around can fix that, until Monday." And so Bob and I were, being the kind of whatever we are, we kept studying it, and finally we found a hammer in the trunk and a screwdriver in the trunk, and so we beat a hole in the floorboard of the old Falcon. And then we found a coat hanger, and we ran it through this hole in the floorboard down to the little thing on the transmission or clutch or whatever, and wired it around that, and then wired the wrench on the other end. So Bob had to sit close to me like he was my boyfriend. And when we were ready to go, he'd pull it out and I'd put it in gear. And we drove it around UT, even down the drag for like a week or two that way. I thought we were a couple of fags, because he was always sitting.
Probably got pretty good at it.
He was always sitting right there next to me,
That's probably what he died from. It wasn't cigarettes.
Anyway, that was.
Yeah.
That's great.
I finally turned that car end over end one time after we'd been drinking way too much, and on a dirt road, and fortunately there were 3 of us in there, it didn't hurt any of us, but it still tore the car all apart.
Thank God for safety belts, right?
Oh hell, I don't even think we had one on. I don't even think it had one. and ended up in a kind of a briar patch, and so we ended up taking a knife and putting a hole in one of the tires so we could claim we had a blowout. Then walked about 3 or 4 or 5 miles home to get to my grandmother's house, and the same highway patrolman, Ben Walker, eventually figured out something had happened out there. By then we had gone back the next day and got the car and took it home, but that car it still ran once we got the tire fixed, so we'd punched a hole in. But it looked like literally the windshield was kind of wired on, and the car was kind of lopsided, and we drove it all the way from Mason to Wichita Falls, about 250 miles, and just my dad was an easy guy, so we just parked it in the driveway, and he came home from work that day, and there's this car that looked like it had been beat all the shit, and anyway, they got it eventually put back together and drove that thing some more. An old Falcon, 60 Falcon.
60?
3 on the 3, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's all it was. 6-cylinder, 3 on the 3. I'd also knocked a hole in it. One time we'd headed out there, burned up the engine because I was out in the pasture in it, and we were chasing rabbits in it, and somehow I managed to knock a hole in the oil pan, and of course I'd ignored the red light and everything.
Well, I was going to get another Prius when I trade cars, but I want to find me a fucking 65.
It was a great machine.
They probably got like 2 miles a gallon with that 6-cylinder.
I wouldn't mind having it.
You probably couldn't have.
It never quits.
Yeah.
What happens?
It was quite a car, man. That was quite a car.
And Keith, where did you grow up?
Well, I'm from Kentucky, but I grew up I guess you could say in Memphis and then New York, because that's sort of like how you look at growing up. But
what age did you move from Kentucky to Memphis?
I was about a month, 6 weeks away from being 9 when we moved to Memphis. And I lived there till I was 17.
And when you get your guitar here in a little bit, we'll probably ask you to play the Broken Homes, but when you were a kiddo, you were born in Kentucky.
Yes.
And you were there until you were 9. Is that when your parents got a divorce, or when did you leave?
No, they got a divorce when I was 5 or 6.
Yeah, so you don't have a.
We had to leave because my dad was just fucking up all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she got out of there.
And so y'all moved to Memphis. I wonder what was in Memphis. That was kind of a stroke of good luck for you.
She wanted away from everything she ever was familiar with.
Yeah, but that's Music City, and luck was it for you that you went to Memphis rather than Kentucky, or you'd be racing horses today.
Well, Memphis was a music center, and so was Nashville. Nashville was pretty much just country music in those days.
Yeah.
And Memphis was soul music, rock and roll, and that kind of stuff. So the number one record when we got there was Great Balls of Fire. I remember listening to the radio, and they'd come on and just like explode, out of the radio. And they said, it's made right here in Memphis. And I'm thinking, what do they mean?
Yeah, made. Somebody just concocted.
The first record I ever bought myself, I had a paper out, had an extra $1, excuse me, rode my bike to the record store and bought Green Onions by Booker T and MGs. Turns out they were a Memphis band. I didn't know. I just heard it. I just thought it was just a tough sounding record, man. It just sounded so good. Tough being very good.
What age were you when you started some kind of music, playing guitar, or doing something?
Playing guitar at 17. My senior year in high school, day after Christmas.
Pick up chicks with that, or what?
You're just left and right.
Now, what drew you to the guitar?
My buddy had one, and my sister showed me 4 chords when I borrowed his guitar.
That's your older sister?
She's my only sister. She's 3 years older than me.
And she played guitar?
Yeah, she knew 4 chords, so she showed me.
That's about all you need, isn't it?
She played clarinet and piano and those kind of things, and she knew a little bit about music. And my mother was a mandolin player, but I never heard her play.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Her sister was a guitar player, never heard her either.
How did she get? where?
They were. My family, both sides, are from Stewart County, Tennessee, which is right along. They live right. Their farms are on the Tennessee River. And when they flooded it back in the, TVA coming in, they all had to move. And so part of them, they scattered around, but my direct bunch moved to Murray, Kentucky, which is 20 miles away from the dam.
Yeah.
And Paris, Tennessee's 20 miles away from that, just different.
Correct.
And so anyway, that's where I'm from, land between the lakes. But I remember when I was just a young guy, my dad would drive me, and we'd go down this highway, and it'd just come to an end. The water would be there.
Oh, wow.
It's just because that's where that's where it quit.
Come up,
and the highway was just still right there, just lapping up the little.
Our ranch that we grew up with in Three Rivers was condemned and is under the dam, and it's I always wondered what it'd be like to get GPS coordinates and figure out where it is. I have so many great memories of the river and doing so many things on it, but it's under the water under Calham.
Me and my cousins always sit around and think, boy, if we had that land today, right there on the river, it'd be worth so much.
Oh yeah, of course, ours was totally under. We didn't have any river frontage or lake frontage. It went on the bottom.
Their farms were under. My dad's side had 40 acres or something. My mom's side had 1,250 acres.
Yeah.
And it's all, gone.
Yeah. And then you said you started playing around 12 or?
No, I was 17.
High school. 17.
I started writing lyrics when I was 15 in study hall. Because I'd seen
Detention?
No, just study hall. I'd seen that movie, Your Cheating Heart, with George Hamilton, that about Hank Williams, and I always felt the connection to music anyway, so I started just trying to fiddle with it, write lyrics.
I always loved songs and music. We listened to everything, but I never was felt like I had any kind of ability with music.
There had to be some point where somebody recognized that you had something, because you trekked off and you went. What age were you when you went hitchhiking away from home?
17.
So at 17.
Yeah.
Man,
I started playing the day after Christmas, and I graduated in May.
So 5 months into it, you said, "This is me. I'm going to New York City."
Well, I did go to New York City, but my mom took me out to the brand new Interstate 40 link that was right there at the edge of Memphis at the time. And she looked at me, and it was so unlike her, but she says, "Now, Keith, I want you to remember now, always try to have fun." And I looked at her
that's good advice.
You know, it's the first time I think you've ever said that to me.
Are you drinking again?
Talking to somebody else?
Yeah.
How neat. That's good.
And so, but she took you out there, and she knew you were leaving to.
I'd been hitchhiking a couple of summers before, like the 10th to 11th grade. I hitchhiked up to Kentucky to see my dad. And
that was a different time, though. Hitchhiking wasn't a place you got killed.
Between 11th and 12th, I hitchhiked down to Florida for the summer. Hitchhike back. Yeah, you could. I just didn't think. No one thought anything about it. Back then. You just. That's what you did. That's
that was a little bit. And what year was that?
It was 1966.
So it was kind of the hippie days and that. It wasn't quite as
almost ready to be. The hippies came out that I knew about in 1967. That's where they got hit the papers and stuff.
Yeah. But, and so you left Memphis and you hitchhiked around at 17. When did you make your way up? Because I mean, I remember
New York the first time.
Well, I just remember you talking about being in New York and wherever, and I just can't imagine a 17-year-old that's been playing guitar for 6 months going up to New York and having any success at music.
Well, I hitchhiked over to Washington, D.C. to see like some stuff around there, staying at the Y. I hitchhiked up to my dad's, got a little job, made a little bit of money, maybe like $60, $80. I hitchhiked around, and got to D.C., so I was leaving D.C. to go to New York City, and a guy pulled over in a big-ass, beautiful Cadillac.
Oh, man.
I'd never been in one before. But he had a Wonder Bar radio and all shit like that. Remember that?
No.
Well, I'd heard about him, but you just hit one button, it goes and finds you a station. That was just like, wow, a space vehicle. He said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going up to New York." And he said, "Well, where in New York?" And I said, "I didn't know. I just said New York." I just kept asking.
Is that a city or a?
I was going to New York City. Yeah.
I
said, he said, all right. So he dropped me off finally when I didn't know. He dropped me off at Broadway and 42nd Street, which is about as middle as you can get, So I get out of the car. Thank you very much. I started asking around, "Where's Greenwich Village?" 42 blocks down that way. I thought, well, that sounds like a long way. I had my suitcase and my guitar. I walked one block and I thought, son of a bitch, these are big ass blocks. And I had to walk.
What time of year?
Probably at that time it's July.
Okay, not something.
It wasn't cold.
Wasn't cold.
No. But then, I was there just a few days, maybe a week at the most, and I knew that New York was way ahead of where I should be. So I started hitchhiking back. I stopped in Memphis a couple of days because it was on the way to Denver, kind of. And a buddy of mine said he was going to go to Nassau, and I said, and he said, "You want to go with me?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Well, meet me in Miami at such and such a day." So, and I don't know how this happened, but I was hitchhiking I was going to go. I didn't have any idea of geography very much. I mean, I did, but I didn't know the reality. I thought, well, I'll just go on up to Alaska.
Oh, shit.
Well, I got to Aurora, Colorado, and these guys in the truck picked me up and says, "We're going to El Paso and then back over to San Antonio. And you want to go?" And I said, "Sure."
Yeah, why not?
That's how random shit was.
Yeah.
Anyway, I finally made it to.
That is so cool.
I made it to Miami.
Yeah.
And maybe,
you left from New York to go to Miami by virtue of Colorado, El Paso.
And I may have some of my dates. I'm going to have to sit around and think about this tonight to get my dates just right out. That could have been. No, it wasn't. It was 66. I bet it was. So anyway, made it to Miami, that's the first plane trip I had. And I had that little sticker on my guitar case for years that checked me in at Nassau,
Mm-hmm.
And remember, we got off the plane and the guy was just standing there handing out banana daiquiris.
Oh, shit. Oh, you went to Nassau?
Yeah, that's where we flew into Nassau.
Huh.
It's 8 o'clock. I just wanted you to know.
Bedtime.
That's my hand workout time. I'll do it before I go to bed.
So what did y'all do in Nassau?
He wanted to gamble. I just wanted to go to Nassau or anywhere. I didn't care. I just liked going. Going and doing.
So y'all blew into Nassau. How long were you in Nassau?
Oh, just, 5-6 days, something like that. But one neat thing, I was sitting on the seawall, and I wrote about this in Facebook not long ago, but I had a book of poems. And Ben Jonson was in there, and I was familiar with this commercial, drink to me only with thine eyes, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, so I was learning that poem. It's called To Cecilia. Drink to me only with thine eyes, and I shall pledge with mine, or leave a kiss but in the cup, and I'll not look for wine. A thirst that from the soul doth rise, doth ask a drink divine, but might I of Job's nectar cup I'd not exchange for mine. And I was learning that, trying to learn it. And I had a large coat that cost a nickel, back then. And I was sitting on the seawall there, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this little hand just reaching up. I thought, what the heck? I looked over in that little hand, grabbed my Coke and ran off, and this little black guy, he was just running. Ran off with my Coke. I'll never forget it. It was so cool.
So y'all were there for 5 days. You're still in your 17, 18-year-old?
Still 17. I didn't go back home till October when I had to sign up for the draft.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. And
it's the heat of the damn Vietnam War.
Oh, yeah.
And did you get called up?
I didn't. About I don't know when. Maybe October. 6 months later would be June or whatever it is, or no. I think it was May or June. I got called for my first physical, and I got back. I was 1Y. I don't know why. And the next time I got a physical, I was living in New York City. And they sent back I was 4F, which I thought you had to be gay to get that.
Yeah.
But I got that. I don't know why, but a lot of people didn't. Like Bruce Springsteen didn't go, Buffett didn't go. Hell, so many people didn't go.
I tried my best to have something wrong with me, but I couldn't come up with anything.
Yeah.
Did you have to go?
Well, I ended up joining the Navy, but I would have been drafted if I hadn't. And I tried to join the Air Force to be a pilot, and at that time you had to have the 20/20 vision, which I didn't, so I couldn't be a pilot in the Air Force. And then I tried to.
Don't you still have to do that?
I think nowadays, probably between all this corrective vision,
you can LASIK or something else.
You can end up having it even though you didn't have it. But I tried to join the Navy as a pilot, and they once again didn't have good enough vision. So then I went back to the Air Force and tried to join as a navigator, and they told me I couldn't hear good enough.
Oh shit!
And so then I went back to the Navy, and they decided I could probably hear good enough to be a navigator, and so that's when I went in as a Navy, and it was at the time, I thought I'd be the only person that didn't figure out how to get out of this deal. But it turned out, to this day, one of my best friends ever is a fellow in Boulder now, lives in Boulder, that I met when I was in the Navy, and he was in for 4 years. I just spent my whole time trying to figure out how the hell to get out. So I wasn't in but a year, but it was he's Rick Daggett. He's my.
What age is he? What age is he?
Well, the same as me. He's like 6 months younger or something. But he's pretty much the same age. And he was in for one. He was gung ho. I mean, he was ready to go fight the war. And after he went on 2 tours over there, bombing the North and bombing over there, and by the second tour, he realized how horrible or just stupid it was. Yeah. One of the stories, he tells lots of stories too, but he said, they accused us of bombing the French embassy, and he said, we didn't intentionally bomb it, but since we were the only U.S. plane over Hanoi that day, there's a good chance we were the ones that
maybe on the way.
There's a good chance we were the ones that bombed the French embassy. Yeah.